Hello to all. Today we have a a lot of special guests. This is amazing. Thank you for being here with us. We have Judy, we have Phil and Rick. We have an international team that we are working here together. I am in Mexico City. I know that Phil, you are in England, in London, or where?
Liverpool, so further up north.
Liverpool. Okay, perfect. And Rick, where are you?
I'm near Denver, Colorado.
Nice. And Judy is also in the States, so this is amazing. Really, thank you for being here. We are going to, I know that you are having this weekend in a couple of days already a boss conference that for business owners, uh, entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. So I am happy to have you here with me today. We are going to know you a little bit better as a person. Where is your story? Where are you coming from? So let's start with you, Judy. Your story, a little bit of where are you coming from, some of the details of what are you doing, why you decided to create this event. But let's start with yourself. Like, who is Judy and why people needs to hear you.
Okay. Well, my business, first of all, is the Center for Strategic Change. Now, who Judy is a entrepreneur business person now. I was not always a business person, and no one in my family ever owned a business. So I came from a family of employees. And so taking that giant step to start a business was a quantum leap. And there are still messages I hear to this day that I have to work, because part of this is believe in yourself, Alejandro. That's part of your business. There's still messages I hear today that I have to deal with and still overcome. Because no one in my family had ever owned a business. When I decided to start a business, the message I heard from my parents is, well, why don't you just get a job? And it's like, well, I've had a job. But there's something else I want to do. And, they didn't understand exactly what I was wanting to do because I could not articulate it clearly in the beginning. When the idea is first formulating, it was very difficult to articulate it clearly. And you're going to see a connection to that in the content in the business owner success system. And so I took that step, took the leap. And I have to tell you, whenever there was as we go through business, we go on a journey. There's the peaks, the valleys, and it's not a straight line. And we have to learn how to overcome those valleys and get back to the peaks. But every time I hit one of those valleys, I would hear this message: why don't you just get a job? But the thing is, with a job, there's still peaks and valleys. And there was this other voice inside of me that said, come on, you can do this. You can do this. Just put, one more foot in front of the other, put one more foot in front of the other, and keep taking little steps. And so that's how I got to the Center for Strategic Change. And 29 years later, I still have the Center for Strategic Change. And that is part of the reason that I am hosting the Business Owner Success System Conference. Because as business owners, it's those messages we allow into our mind that can deter us. And we need to just develop, I'm going to say, techniques to address the negative messages we hear and techniques to support the positive messages we hear. So one of the systems as business owners that we have to either develop or manage, if we have it, is the system dealing with our mindset. So that's one system. But then, my business over the years, what we deal with in the Center for Strategic Change is developing strategy to help businesses and nonprofits grow. And as I watched them and worked with them on strategy, the piece that always bubbled up was strategy is just one piece of the equation. Everybody thinks that strategic thinking part where they're developing the strategy is strategic planning. Well, that's just a piece. Strategic planning and strategy is actually taking the action. And when they had to take action, that's where things start to come apart, because you have to have the systems in place, or you have to build the systems to support the action that leads you to implement your strategy. And so it finally resonated with me that strategy plus systems equals success. And that's why I'm hosting the Business Owner Success System Conference, is to help business owners, business leaders, nonprofit leaders even, realize the importance of systems and to learn from other successful business owners who have developed systems and use those to grow their business. So that's my story.
Let me ask you a little bit deeper your why, even for your business and working with entrepreneurs and working with business owners, because really that is where your passion is, and it's
Mhm.
really why people connect with you because you have a big why that is bigger than you sometimes. So tell me about your why.
Oh, that's a really deep question, Alejandro. The why is, I think the why is based partly on the struggle I encountered as I went down this journey. But the bigger why is, the really, really big why is because my passion is to make a difference. And we all can make a difference in different ways. You know, you hear people say that, I want to make a difference, but then you ask them how or why, like you just did. And that's where the really deep thought comes. And the reason I want to make a difference is that's just how I am wired. I am wired that way, is to help people be the best they can be. You know, so initially my training was education, was teaching. So there's a connection there, you know, it's all part of it. And teaching and educating takes all kinds of different paths as we go through our life. And this is one of the paths that, since I am no longer a classroom teacher, which I was, that this is a way that I can help people become the best they can be. It's all about educating and helping businesses and nonprofits. I mean, nonprofits provide just this incredible service to the world, and helping them become more effective and have a greater impact. So it's both business and nonprofits. That's the why, is make a difference in whatever way I can.
Okay, awesome. Let's go to Rick now, and then we can come back again with you. But Rick, I know that you are part of this boss conference
Mhm.
that you have created 5 companies. That's amazing, really. And I know also that you are talking about 5 simple ways to raise money for your business. So I want to learn that also. So that's great. Tell me a little bit about your story, my friend. Who was Rick before you started to believe in yourself? What happened in the middle? Like, what was like the tipping point or the thing that you decided, okay, I am somebody in this world and I have to create something in this world. So who was Rick before?
Well, whenever someone asks me that open-ended of a question, like tell us your story, I always I try to avoid this, but I always am tempted. I'm kind of dating myself here, but there was this old movie called The Jerk, and Steve Martin begins the movie by saying, "I was born a poor black child," but of course he's not black, so that's a comedy. Um, uh, so anyway, I grew up in an entrepreneurial household. My dad was an entrepreneur, and his father was an entrepreneur. His father-in-law was a big entrepreneur. He co-founded American Family Insurance and an iron works in Wisconsin. Um, uh, unlike Judy, I didn't have any negative pressure towards being an entrepreneur growing up. But so I had just the reverse reaction. I remember telling my dad with great confidence at age 18 that I would never be an entrepreneur because I saw how much work it appeared, at least from my point of view as a kid growing up, it seemed like he was always working. And now clearly I've overcome that initial teenage resistance. Uh, uh, when I was I ended up getting a degree in computer science and philosophy, and I got recruited by Microsoft. So I ended up working at Microsoft as an employee. And it's a very fertile environment, that kind of company on the edge of technology, on the edge of changing the world, business wise at least. And so that's where I started to have entrepreneurial thoughts. I thought of all kinds of businesses I could start, but I was afraid. I was afraid because my only experience in business was working for Microsoft, and Microsoft has a lot of advantages. At least by the time I got there, they were already a pretty big company. I got there around when they had about 1,000 employees. Now they have a couple 100,000. But I mean, it was a fast-growing, big company, lots of marketing power, worldwide known brand. And so I incorrectly thought that you had to have that kind of marketing power behind you, or otherwise you couldn't succeed. But finally, I just couldn't take it anymore as an employee, and I left. And I helped my dad for a couple of years, and then I started my own business, and then I started another business, and another business, and another business, I actually launched 8 businesses in 4 years. 4 of them went nowhere. Okay, they were like they died on on launch. No one wanted to use them. Failures. But 4 of them became multi-million-dollar success stories, and now I'm working on my 5th. So, and so that's one of the lessons: is it doesn't matter how many times you fail, because if you just succeed once, well, now you're succeeding. Now you can work with that, you can grow that, and so on. So yeah, at Boss Conference or BossCon, I will be speaking on how to raise money. I've raised millions of dollars in angel funding over the years. I've raised other types of money. I found other ways of harnessing value. That's really kind of the key for most business owners is realizing how valuable your network is, your relationships are, your reputation is. That's all capital too. So we'll talk about all of those forms of capital and how to find the capital that your business needs to grow.
And tell me a little bit, once again, a little bit more about your why, because you have to have your why in each of the companies that you have and that you have created.
I'm sorry, my wife or my life?
Your why?
Your why.
My why, my why. Okay, I was wrong on both guesses. My why. Well, I have a funny story about the why. At first, it was just to feed myself because I had taken this leap and I needed to grow the business and make enough money to keep the lights on and so on. So that was my first why, was just a self-interested motivation to have money. And then after I was successful enough, after my business was making a couple $1 million, I could relax a little bit, right? And so I start playing video games like all the time, all day. Video games. Because finally I could relax a little bit after I had some success. And this is back in the original Xbox era. And I remember I was playing Spider-Man. And I got to a particularly frustrating part of the game. And it just hit me. I threw down my controller and I said, is this why I work so hard in business? So I could play video games? And so I had a crisis of why. Not a crisis of wife or life, but, well, kind of life. Why? A crisis of why. And so that's a moment where I consciously decided to pick a purpose. I didn't feel called to a purpose. I felt called to have a purpose because I was missing the why. And I adopted the mission of helping entrepreneurs because it seemed to me that if I can help entrepreneurs, then my total impact in the world is magnified because they're already helping people. Even if they're in a for-profit business, they're creating value in the world that's helping people. So, my first why was helping small business owners, and that why lasted about maybe 3 years. I'm going to say, and then there came an election. No, it was 2 years. Because that crisis happened in 2004. And then in 2006, late 2006, I was watching the election. And there was a moment that evening where, election night, where our country's political divide finally got to me. I just couldn't take it anymore. And I do have this degree in philosophy, which I had never really used directly. It had been all about computer science. But finally, our political divide hit me. I couldn't take it anymore. I realized I couldn't sit on the sidelines anymore. And that became my new why. And so I dusted off my degree in philosophy and I started off like halftime. I'd go out into the world and just talk to people. And I'm an introvert, so I don't like to do that, but I was on a mission. So if you have a powerful why, you can overcome some of your own resistance points. So I started talking to people, and a couple of years later, I had a breakthrough. A couple more years later, I had a big breakthrough. And that's where I really committed to working on this until I could see it through. So now, not only am I launching a for-profit business, a Zoom competitor, but I'm also launching a political movement now. We're going to heal our political divide. And we're going to do that through education, because it turns out there are some things that nobody has a choice about, like the laws of economics. And it turns out the laws of economics govern everything. So if we learn the laws of economics and how they apply to everything, we're done. we can now come together on these things that we can prove are correct. And I believe that that's the key to healing our political divide. It's not the easy way, but it is, I believe, the real way. So that's my why at this point. And so now suddenly I need even more money, because I need a lot of money to fund this nonprofit. So now I want to I'm motivated to build a really big, successful business, because it's not about me anymore. It's about the movement.
Awesome. And I know that because you are in this philosophy, and that means that you are like thinking and overthinking sometimes some of the things that are happening in your life. What would you say was your lessons with the company that didn't work for you?
Oh, the companies that didn't work. Every company that did not work for me had one or two properties. Either I was too innovative and I was inventing a whole nother product category that people hadn't seen before, okay? Or I didn't have enough maturity in my onboarding process so that new customers couldn't engage. I came up with a product. I called it Salesforce Audio. And this is in 2005. So it was before the iPhone, it was before smartphones. And so in 2005, you had cell phones, but you can only hit like numbers on them, right? And so I came up with this idea that like a carpet cleaner, for example, could clean someone's carpets and then leave. And then in their van, they could call my service, leave a voicemail, and record the email address of the customer they just left. And then my service would send that voicemail as an audio clip, we call it an audio postcard, to that customer. And it was a new type of follow-up. It was a new way to follow up with a customer. Just after you left them, it would be inappropriate to making a phone call because you just left them. It would be impossible at that time to send an email. So this is a way of sending an email by phone for a traveling, like a carpet cleaner business. And so I called it Salesforce Audio, and the tagline was it was the best way to follow up with your customers. The idea was that the audio postcard could give them maybe a coupon for 50% off their next cleaning if they shared the coupon with a friend. So that grows the business. And it was so I went to a carpet cleaning convention, or a carpet cleaning conference. It was Joe Polish's conference, if you know that name. And I spoke in front of 600 carpet cleaners. And I sold 590 subscriptions to that business. So that's a success, right? Wrong. Not one person used the service. Not one.
Wow.
They all bought it. They all got the concept. But so that was an example of an immature onboarding process. I just didn't help them use the service. It was a brilliant service. Now, a couple of years later, with the iPhone and smartphones, it maybe wasn't as needed anymore. But so that was an example of a totally failed business that I created, and I had everything right except for the onboarding. So anything can now. I could have stuck with that business and fixed the onboarding and continued to sell it, but I'm a serial entrepreneur. I was already on my next thing by the time I launched that thing. So. And my next thing ended up being a big thing. The next thing was Instant Teleseminar, which is still highly profitable today, and funding the creation of my next product. So and it's been going 15 years, since 2007. So like I said, it doesn't matter how many times you fail. All that matters is that you keep trying until you succeed.
We have Sonia saying, "Fortune in the follow-up."
Fortune
So,
in the follow-up, absolutely.
so thank you, Rick. I believe there is a lot of wisdom on the words that you shared today. What would you say, or why you say that people, business owners, entrepreneurs, or even people that wants to start the entrepreneurship world should connect to the Business Owner Success Conference?
Well, as I said in my email to my own list, promoting the Boss Conference, my first business was okay. It was making some money, but it didn't boom. It didn't grow aggressively, and so I started going to conferences. And it was the lessons I learned in those conferences. It was the motivation. It was the connections. Again, I'm an introvert. I don't like going to conferences. I hate going to conferences. But I went to conferences because that's where you get the education and the connections and so on. So, and especially with today's technology and Boss Conference being a virtual event, and so it's free to attend, and the speakers are not allowed to pitch their products during their speech, because it's all about education, because that's what Judy's all about. It's a no-brainer. It's free. It's education. It's people who've been there, done that. And so Boss Conference makes all the sense in the world. One thing I discovered going to conferences, like I could be at a 3-day conference, and by the time you go to like 20 conferences, you kind of get most of the core lessons, right? And I always kept thinking, oh, I'll never go to another conference again. I've learned it all. And then on the last day, as I'm leaving to the airport, there's some conversation. And that conversation is worth 10 times or 100 times the conference trip. So, and it happens every time, and I hate it because, it's kind of an arrogance thing to say, I don't need any more education, I'm done. And then you get surprised every time. So go, not because of the lessons you expect to learn, go because you're going to expose yourself to ideas you don't expect. And that's often the real value.
There is a question also for you. Before the onboarding, did Rick create 1 to 10 showcase beta sites, early adopters, and show that they...
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. Who, me? No, this might be the wrong thing to do. And that was an example of a mistake. And I think Matt's question here is, and the suggestion of the question is absolutely correct. I should have done what Matt said. But I was focused on getting the technology to work, and my knowledge of business and sales flow, like I knew that would create value. But so I was testing the product. I wasn't testing the onboarding. I didn't even think about onboarding because it's so simple to me. I underestimated the difficulty. I was at another conference, and I was talking to what's his name? He's the head of AI at Google. He wrote the book The Age of Spiritual Machines and so on. I forget his name now. Whatever his name was, brilliant thinker, internationally known leader and thought leader and so on, futurist. And so he's famous for predicting the future, okay, especially with regards to technology. And I asked him a similar question. I asked him, of the predictions that he missed, was there anything common that was anything common to all of those missed predictions? And at first he said, no, he can't think of anything. And then someone else asked a question. And then he came back to my question and said, actually, I did think of something. Every one of my, that I can think of, he said, of my predictions that were wrong, they were wrong because I underestimated the difficulty of the social processes changing. The technology was ready, but society wasn't ready to adopt the particular prediction. And so I think that was the same mistake I made in this one business. Was the technology was ready, but the people weren't ready. And I wasn't thinking about the people. I was thinking about the technology.
Mm.
So yeah, a good point, Matt.
Awesome, Rick. Thank you very much for your time here, and
Uh-huh.
let's
Absolutely.
continue in a couple of minutes. Phil, it's great to have you here with us. Also, I
Thank
know
you,
you
brother.
for a little while with the strategic alliance. This is great. I know that you are going to be talking about visibility equals credibility. How to
Hmm.
scale your business using podcasts and summits. You are big with podcasts. You are big with all the billionaires on. Let's talk about. So tell me a little bit about your story, Phil, who you were, before you started all the things that you are doing now. I know that you are very known in the podcasting world, but tell me a little bit about yourself, who you were, why you started to create all these things that you are doing now.
I'd love to say it was planned. It really wasn't. As with most great things, it happens completely organically and accidentally. In fact, my most successful businesses, I can't even take credit for them. They were other people coming to me saying, "Hey, can I pay you to teach me how to do this?" And they've been the most successful things. The things that I've had the idea with, almost similar to Rick in a way. Like I was resonating a lot with what he was saying because I was thinking about one of my biggest ever flops in business, and it was a VR marketing consultancy. And we actually had some very big clients. We're working with Microsoft Asia, working with some great people, but we were constantly trying to convince people to buy $1,000 headset so that we could advertise to them, which turns out that doesn't work so well. Nobody wants to pay $1,000 so they can be advertised to. So I was never going to be an entrepreneur. That was not my plan. In fact, I was never going to leave the world of sport. I was a professional football, I guess for most of you, soccer player. And I played professionally from a young age and left the UK at 16 to go and play in Central Europe. And as far as I was concerned, my career was mapped out for me. I was going to play until my mid 30s. Then I was going to become a coach. Then when I was sick of being a coach, I was going to become a TV pundit. And then I got medically retired in my early 20s and was like, oh, well, didn't see that one coming. And went into coaching, which was horrific. I often describe it as being like a recovering alcoholic trying to manage a bar. I did not want to be on the sidelines. It was incredibly painful. I was desperate to be on the pitch. So I ended up leaving the world of sport completely, and I went and retrained, did some courses with the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors at university and became a valuation surveyor within real estate. Was fortunate enough to work for some of the biggest companies in the world and work alongside people like Jones Lang LaSalle, CBRE, Keller Williams, some really great people and some great names. And like most people in an environment, I think, just kind of got a bit sick of it. I got to a very senior level quite quickly, got tired of board meetings that didn't need to be meetings and conferences that could have been emails. And I got so sick of it. I was like, I need to get away from all of this. And I at the time had been using sports podcasting because I wanted to stay in touch with the world of sports. So I'd previously grown and sold two quite successful sports podcasting networks. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to go and set up and I'm going to do a consultancy. So I set up two businesses. One of them was a management consultancy business within the world of professional services. And the other one was a high-level search firm, recruitment firm within the same industry. And for about 6 months, I made no money. And I had Judy's thing, actually, Judy. I was smiling when you were saying that. I kept waking up every day thinking, maybe I should just go back and get a real job. Like maybe this isn't for me. And I kind of naively thought that how do I word this? I kind of naively thought that because I was pretty good at what I did within the corporate world, that would just somehow carry over as an entrepreneur. And having worked for these massive companies, my idea of choosing a project was scrolling through my emails and seeing which one I wanted to work on. I had no idea that you had to go and win clients. Nobody had told me this. In fact, most people listening to this will laugh, but I had no idea that clients didn't pay invoices until you chased them. I didn't know that was a thing, right? As far as I was concerned, like something went across to the admin department, the accounts department, money turned up in my account. That was as far as the transaction went. So I remember kind of having sleepless nights. I had a pregnant wife at this time. I mean, we all choose the best times to become an entrepreneur, don't we? And I've got my wife, she's not happy at all. And I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do here. This is a nightmare. And then I suddenly was sat thinking one night, and I was like, do you know what? The power of podcasting wasn't in the audience, and it wasn't in the tickets that I got, and it wasn't in any of that. it was in the networking. It was the fact that as a fan with a podcast, I got to speak to some of the best players, the best managers, get the best opportunities out of anybody in the world. And I suddenly realized that networking through whether it's podcasting, summits, virtual networking events, whatever, was actually where the power was. It was never in the audience. It was in having a VIP backstage pass to network with whoever you want. Because if you have a lot of high value relationships and strategic partnerships, doors get open, speaking opportunities get extended to you. You get to learn from the best. You get to avoid making a lot of mistakes. I mean, one of the things I'm sure that everybody in this room can attest to is that there's nothing better than being able to go to a friend or a mentor and say, I'm having this problem. And they go, oh, I had that 3 years ago. Let me tell you the answer. And it's like, oh, thank goodness for that. So as a result, I made a very primitive strategy. And the strategy was, why don't I invite 100 CEOs onto a podcast of companies that I would love to work with? Not to sell them anything, just to build a relationship with them and see what happens. Having made no money for 6 months, fast forward 3 more months, I've now got 21 people full-time globally working for me. I'm still having sleepless nights because now I've bitten off way more than I can chew. And eventually ended up exiting successfully both of those businesses, which I was very proud of. That leads me to about 5 or 6 years ago where I was like, now what do I do? I had Rick's Xbox moment, although mine was the PlayStation. Spent about 6 months just playing lots and lots of PlayStation and thinking I really need to do something now, don't I? And people started to come to me and say, how did you get that TV show? How did you get that speaking gig? How did you end up working with Microsoft? How did you win that client, that professional association? And I got so sick of saying to them, I met them on a podcast. I met them at a summit. I met them on a podcast. I just thought, people clearly aren't doing this. I should teach them how to do this. So started teaching some close family and friends, and it worked incredibly well for them. And they started telling all of their network who started to come to me. And fast forward to where we are today, we've been ranked #1 in the world for the past 4 years at doing exactly that. We help hundreds of customers every single year. And to be honest, I've never been involved in a business that I love so much. I genuinely love what we do. It's a lot of fun and it's very successful. So I'm very proud of that.
Awesome, Rick. And tell me a little bit more about that process of yourself. Like, okay, how was that process where you were thinking, okay, I will have a career in the sports world all the time, and this is my life, and I don't have to think anything else. And suddenly, okay, this doesn't exist. What happened in your mind? What happened in yourself? Like, I have to create something new. Of course, you started to go on this, but really the only way that you can start the podcasting and all these things and start to attract that is because you started to believe in yourself in some point between the failure
Sure.
of the sports and what you are doing now.
So I handled it really well when I first left sport. I drank copious amounts of alcohol and smoked far too much marijuana. So I handled it really, really well. And I was pretty much I was going to be the guy propping up a bar in 20 years time going, I used to be somebody. Like I was going to be that guy. And I realized that one of the things that I had enjoyed in sport was access to money and people with money. And I wasn't designed to be broke. I mean, I started off as a child born into quite an impoverished family, and sport had really changed that for me. So somebody taking away that salary suddenly made me realize, okay, I'm drinking and I'm smoking, but I'm running out of money to drink and smoke at this point. So I think the first thought was probably I need to make some money so I can keep drinking and smoking. And I didn't know what to do. And I kind of realized that at this point, all of my friends had already gone on to university and they were doing their thing. So I went to a university open day and genuinely had no idea what I was going to do. Like none. Like I talked to people about doing the RICS qualification and stuff, but it wasn't planned. Like as with most things, I just kind of, it happened. But it happened because of networking. So I turned up to this event and there's, it's an open day. And without trying to sound rude, there's lots of 17, 18-year-old kids running around the place, all really excited, signing up for stuff, collecting all the free giveaway bags. And I'm just like, I'm not having any of this. I don't like this. So I'm stood at the back of the room, literally with my back against the wall. And there was a guy who I assumed was a parent stood at the back with me. And I said, oh, this is not for me. And he was like, no, I hate these days. And we got chatting. I said, so what do you do? And he said, oh, I head up the built environment department. So I was like, oh, so what does that mean? So he starts talking to me about, construction and real estate. And he said, I was in commercial real estate. He said, in fact, I spent most of my life in stadium construction and management. And I was like, well, now you've got my interest because I love sports stadiums. So we got chatting, and he said, "Well, why don't you come and do my program? We're teaching valuation surveying. I think you'd be really good at it. Like, just come and do it." And because of that relationship, I did. And I think the simplest way of answering your question about where that confidence came from is I ended up in these massive corporate machines where a lot of people, it was about it was whose daddy was whose cousin was who before you got a job. Your uncle would give the job to his nephew on the way down, and there was a lot of inter-office politics, and I never subscribed to that. Coming from the world of sport, my attitude was I'm going to focus on the areas that I'm best at, and I plan on beating everybody. And the one thing that I realized I was doing that most people weren't was I was doing competitor analysis, even from people in my own department. I was looking at where their strengths and weaknesses were, how I was going to beat them. And it was a game to me. And as a result, I excelled very quickly and got to board level at a relatively young age, given I was quite a late starter. And as a result, I suddenly realized, hey, I'm really good at this. Like, I can build relationships with people, and I get me in a room with anybody at any level. We'll have a great conversation, and if we resonate together, some opportunity is going to come out of it. And the businesses I worked for found the same thing. So they would send me, this wet behind the ears surveyor who knew next to nothing, into these meetings that were worth hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, and say, you go do it. Go have a chat with them, make friends, and they'll do the deal. And that's really stuck with me all the way through, because I find a lot of business owners they're really good at what they do, but they are their industry's best kept secret. Nobody knows that they exist, and that actually people really deserve to know that they exist. And it's really simple, but it is those two things. It's having the blueprint to how you earn systems in place, plugging the systems for the conference, but the systems and the processes in place to become an authority and become recognized as an authority. And there's creating high value relationships through networking. That's pretty much the basis of what you need to be a successful business, because from there you can build, you can sell, you can network, you can partner, you can JV, you can do all the great things that really drive your business forward. And all of that really stemmed from propping up the bar after leaving sport, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. And tell me, from your point of view, why you think that business owners, entrepreneurs need to connect to the Business Owner Success System Conference?
I think the most obvious answer is that, most people are very good at what they do, but they don't really have the systems and processes in place. We like to think we do, but it's almost that question that a lot of business owners try to avoid, isn't it? It's like, so what do you do? They'll tell you very passionately and very proudly. And then you say, what are your systems and processes? And they go, oh, sorry, the line's really bad. I can't quite hear you. And it's because they're all just kind of winging it, right? Somebody once described to me entrepreneurship in two ways. They said being an entrepreneur simply means that you're unemployable. And I quite like that definition. And the other one is that growing a business is essentially like jumping out of the plane and trying to build a parachute on the way down. Mm-hmm. And it really is. So a lot of the people that are speaking at this conference will talk to you about the mistakes that we've made in that field, right? We'll talk to you about the things that we wish we had in place. And, it sounds like it was certainly the same for Rick. Judy, working with you, I know it's the same with you. And from my perspective, I've left a lot of money on the table and quite frankly missed a lot of opportunities by not having the right systems and processes in place. I've also created copious amounts of stomach ulcers and excess weight and stressful, sleepless nights, all because I haven't had systems, because I'm trying to do too many things. And by having the right people, the right process, and the right systems in place, it can really allow you to focus on your core activity, which is your zone of genius. And it's sad to see so many business owners who aren't there, right? They're spending 20, 30% of their time at best in their zone of genius, because they're spending the majority of their time dealing with things that could be systematized and process driven. So that's why I think people should turn up, is if you feel like there's more to give and you could help more people, and if more people knew that you existed, they'd want to do business with you. Well, that's great. But unless you're planning on adding an 8th day to the week, you better have the systems and processes in place to deal with it.
Yes, and yesterday, for example, I had a conversation with a person that was talking with me. Like, I was helping her with some of the podcasting and the thing that I am doing also. And she was telling me, Alejandro, the problem that I have is that I don't have time for more customers. And I was like, okay, that's a good problem. But do you know, if you bring more customers, that is a better problem? That means that you have to create more systems to really be working with all those customers. So that's I am bringing that today because that was exactly what they need. It's like you can say that maybe you can handle more customers, but the reason is you are not having the systems to be really be working with all those new customers.
You're
So
so right.
you can go to the next level even just by starting to think in systems on how to help more people. I started my business like one-on-one calls and one-on-one coaching, and because I love the relationship one-on-one, and of course that is really powerful, but
Mm,
doing that in a group setting is also very powerful. So, and you can like attract more people and work with more people. And even if I am talking to you directly, Phil, and I know that Phil is here, and Phil, and everything is about you, Rick is listening to that, and Rick is
mm,
getting some information of that. Judy is listening to that. I didn't thought about that, but really, what is happening to Phil is exactly the same that is happening to me. So in the group setting, it's also something very powerful. So
it's one of the
I
reasons that I love to sell via networking, because what I was finding was I was spending a lot of time having one-on-one calls with people. But if I could bring everybody into a networking event, not only are they elevating each other and creating new opportunities, customers, joint ventures, I was still able to position myself and say, hey, this is what I do. Who's interested? Because, Judy, you know this from our work together. I don't like to sell. I introduce. I say, here's what we do. Who wants to come along with us? And
Right.
there's always more ways of being more efficient with what it is that you do. And actually, by not having these systems and processes in place, you're depriving your audience of working with you. Because, like that lady you were talking about, I mean, I think you said it was a lady. We'll say it's a lady,
yeah
who said, "I don't have enough. Like, I can't take any more customers." Well, that's not true. It's just simply not true. It means you don't have more time to carry on doing things the way that you're doing. It doesn't mean that there isn't massive room for
Right.
improvement to be able to bring more people on and help more people. And the systems and processes that allow you to do that, once you have them in place, you can scale, you can grow, and it's really exciting. Like, more customers does not mean more work. That's not the same thing. In fact, I'll share this with you, because this was something that a sales manager taught me this years ago, and it recently, within the last few years, was evolved as a mantra. So I had this sales manager, and he used to say to me, constantly think about what is the quickest thing to money. What's the quickest thing to money, Phil? Well, here's the downside with that. The quickest thing to money is often working 16 hours a day, 6 days a week to be able to get a deal across the line. That's the quickest thing to money. So I was speaking with a guy who I'm very fortunate to have a number of billionaire mentors, and this is somebody who I love working with. I met him via the Business Broadcast Network, and I told him this mantra, and he said, "Oh, I really hate that mantra." I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "You need to change it instantly to what's the easiest route to money." Because the easiest route to money will bring up very different thought processes. It will allow you to think about collaborations and joint ventures and partnerships and delegations and all this kind of stuff. Because now you're thinking about, well, how can I help people? How can I be a success? But how can I also make it as easy as possible so that I remain in my zone of genius and that I can elevate others around me to remain in theirs? And that is it takes you from being this one-man band trying to wear every hat to actually the easiest way for me to be successful is to focus on the bit that I'm best at, which leaves all this space, all this stuff that I need to now partner with people and bring them in to help support me with this. And it's just a very, very different way of thinking about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And let's, Judy, we have Paige Spears that is asking a couple of comments. First, I want system processes and automation to start my business with. So that's one of the main reasons to connect to this boss conference, because really that is everything about the conference is going to be talking about that. And the other question is, what are the some basic cost-effective system for new entrepreneurs? I believe that you are going to be talking on that during the conference. What can you say to Paige now?
Well, what I can say to Paige is, first of all, register for the conference, because we have speakers that address all types of basic systems, not only for new entrepreneurs, but for entrepreneurs that have been in business. So we have speakers that are addressing marketing, the whole piece about, like Rick brought up, funding your business. Where do you find funding? Mindset, getting clear on being able to state the purpose of your business so that you can clearly communicate that to prospects. lead generation, technology, automation. We have 25 speakers that are addressing different topics related specifically to different systems. So I would encourage Paige to register because there's just tons. I mean, you're seeing just a small slice of the wisdom that the speakers have today with Rick and with Phil. And the speakers have been just so giving of their insight and their wisdom and their tips. There's practical tips. So there's something for everyone at the Business Owner Success System Conference, BossCon for short.
Okay, we have another comment. The fastest way to money versus the easiest way. I love that reframe.
Mhm.
So that's something from Phil. I would like to ask you, Rick, for your last comments that you want to say about the conference and anything that you want to say to the people that are listening today.
Sure. Well, in hearing Phil's story, like Phil said, there's a lot of similarities. And so we all experience all of these struggles, these emotions, these fears, these setbacks, surprises, good and bad. I was listening to the radio, and an ad came on, and there was this radio station announcer voice kind of guy. And he said, sometimes in business, the unexpected happens. And I said, sometimes? Every GD day. You know? So I just want, my final comment, I guess, is I just want to stress that we're all in this together. And some of us have been through more of it than others, but one thing I've noticed about people who have had success, especially in business, it seems, but I think this is about most of life, is that they're almost always willing to help the person behind them trying to follow that same path. Even though the path is different, there's a lot of similarities. And so, like Judy just said, everyone at this conference is trying to help. And so that's what you're going to experience when you go to BossCon.
Awesome, Rick. Final words from yourself, Phil?
Yeah, it's funny, actually. I was thinking about that radio advert. It would have been more accurate to say sometimes the expected happens, right?
Yeah.
I think that would have been more accurate. I agree completely. I mean, law of reciprocity is huge, and that's certainly something that I've seen. I think it sounds so simple when you say it out loud because we've all heard the information. Your network is your net worth, and it's not what you know, it's who you know. We've all heard these things, and they almost become like a bit of a mantra. But the reality is that when you associate with great people who are, still constantly trying to improve what they're doing, but are quite happy to share their pearls of wisdom with somebody else coming up the ladder behind them, it really helps you to grow your business exponentially. Like no man, no woman is an island. And often, especially when you first set up your business as an entrepreneur, and actually even those of us who have been in business for a number of years, it's very easy to be completely internally focused. Like you're not really talking to people, you're not really communicating. And I am always astounded by the value that comes out of networking events and summits. Quite frankly, you can spend, and I have on several occasions spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on masterminds, and I feel like I've learned more from somebody for free at a summit or a networking event. And that, I think, is incredible. I'm always blown away by the generosity of people, and knowing the people who are speaking at this conference. I think if you're serious about taking your business to the next level, it's a must attend. Even if you attend just solely with the intention of, I'm going to take one golden nugget from each of these speakers, your business will grow exponentially as a result.
Awesome, Rick. Thank you. And last word from your side, Judy. I know, just to let everybody know, it's going to be this Thursday 10, Friday 11, and Saturday 12. Those are the
Yes.
3 days for the conference. So it's free. This is the link that I'm putting here in the page. I already put it in the chat also to register. And final words from your side, Judy.
Well, I just want to build on what both Rick and Phil just said about the desire to learn from others, and when you're in business to reach out and help others. I'm going to just say eons ago, when I was just starting out as a school public information coordinator, and this is way back in the early 80s, one of the seasoned school PR people took me under her wing. And she said some words to me that just have stuck with me through all these years. She said, Judy, the sign of a true professional is one who takes time to bring someone along. And that just is what has guided me through so many of my, I'm going to say, career paths here. It's all about helping someone else gain the information, the help that they need so they can move forward. And that's obviously what motivates me. But the conference is all about that. The 25 speakers, you're just seeing a small segment of them right here, are just truly giving people who've, they've traveled the road. They've figured some things out, and they're willing to share those things that they figured out. And it's all about building those systems that support the action you need to take to implement your strategy. And they have just such nuggets of insight and information. And like Alejandro just said, the conference starts on Thursday, February 10th and runs through the 12th. It is online. When you register each morning of the conference, you will get a link in your email that gives you access to those days' recordings. If your schedule is already booked full, don't worry. There's a way to get access. You can upgrade to the VIP pass, and then you'll have access to those recordings for as long as you want. You can put them into your business library as a resource, because some of them might apply now, but as your business moves forward, there's those nuggets of information in these speakers that will help you when you move further down your road. So you can upgrade to the VIP pass and have access to the wisdom for as long as you want on your business library shelf. So it's truly about helping others move forward. That's the whole purpose of this. And so it's all about strategy plus systems equals success. And you need both.
Okay. Thank you very much, Judy, for this time together. I know that we were a little bit longer, but this was amazing, really, from your side, from Rick and Phil. Yes, Rick.
Alejandro, if I may, brother, like one of the little tip for anybody who's watching this and has liked the sound of this, and you should definitely be signing up for the conference. I don't even know how much the VIP pass is, but I know how generous all the speakers have been with their giveaways. I often find that the price that you pay for the VIP is literally a fraction of one of those gifts. So
Right.
if you physically have the money sat on a card and you want to sign up, I would definitely do it. Not just so you can revisit the content, which is incredibly valuable, but all of the gifts and giveaways and things that are there to support you are really going to help drive your business forward. And you will never, ever find something like that collective again at that price anywhere on the market, period. So definitely do that.
Well, I'll tell them what the VIP pass is, a whole whopping $97. You can't find a 3-day conference with this level of expertise and speakers for that price.
I think my
Yes,
gift's selling for about 10 times that. So
like Phil
let's
says,
just
like Phil says, there is a lot of giveaways and other things that you can see there. So this is not only like having all the recording, but each of the speakers are giving some things from them. So it's really powerful.
Well, I got to interview all the speakers, and I can tell you, when I finished interviewing them all, I was like blown away at the level of expertise and graciousness. I mean, people who have taken time from their schedules, their business, to share this wisdom with those of us that are still, moving down the path. It was truly not only heartwarming, humbling, and amazing.
Yes. Thank you, Judy. This was great. Thank you, Rick. And thank you, Phil. Thank you for your time here. And see you next time.
Thank you, Alejandro
Bye-bye.
Bye.
and Rick and Phil.